Are we live? Is this just like old times? Kristen Davis, where are you? Wake Up Patriots, where is Ed Henry? I'm back.
I'm
Kristen
here.
Davis, good to see you. Good morning.
Good to see you. Good morning.
And good morning, Patriots. I'm going to introduce you all to Kristen in a few minutes, and I know a lot of you are going to be really surprised to see me. I'm going to jump in the Rumble chat ASAP to talk to all of you, but last minute decided to come on and do the show. Kristen and I are going to be here Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the next couple of weeks while Ed's getting settled over at Newsmax, which I hear, Kristen, they're now calling Ed Max because he really is the Max. I was out with him last night.
He is. He's a tough act to follow, so I'm a little nervous. I don't know where our chat is. I'm technologically challenged. I apologize to everyone. You'll have to bear with us through this first time. I cannot figure out how to get the chat.
Well, see, and I'm playing my Rumble chat as we speak. I'm going into the chat right now to see if I can see it, Kristen. But this will not be the first time that we're technologically challenged on the show, so that's the good news.
And I feel like we might be able to lean back into the fact that we're both blonde, and that could be a good first day excuse.
I think that definitely could. Do we know if we're actually live right now? Is there anybody who can validate if we are on Rumble as we speak? Because I'm looking at Rumble and I'm not seeing it, but that doesn't mean that it's not there.
You know, let me go to Rumble. And I know we're live on, we should be live on everything.
All right. Well, I love that we're live on everything. And I hope that the Patriots can see us because I'm really happy to be back and to be here, you know, especially after not announcing it and making it a total surprise that I'm on camera today with you.
We are live on Rumble.
Fabulous.
But why? Oh, there we go. Okay, but I don't know how to, well, we don't.
Well, we're not on the, I can tell you that we're not on the normal channel that we're normally on unless we're somewhere else.
I have us on Wake Up Patriots Rumble channel.
Okay, well, that's where I am. We are live. So wait, so Ed Henry has validated that we are live on Rumble right now. Breaking news. And who better to bring it to us, really, Kristen?
Oh.
Who better than to tell us that we are actually live, except Ed
Henry. Ed Henry. He's like, never trust your show to two blondes.
That's amazing. I love that. I'm just happy that we're actually live and that we're here. And so for those of you that don't know, I don't even know if you know. I think I sent you a photo, though. I had dinner with Ed last night.
You did, and I'm a little jealous that I wasn't there, but then again, I don't live in Florida anymore.
Yeah, well, and we're sorry about that. Florida misses you because Florida is really the best place to be, and it was one of the freest states in the world. So I'm happy to call it.
So is Texas. I'm quite happy in Texas, and I will say Texas has better food.
So, Kristen, you and I go back a long way. I actually met Kristen, for all of you that are watching. I actually was introduced to Kristen through Roger Stone, believe it or not. And we became fast friends. And Kristen has been my publicist for many, many years. And we've worked together on crisis management cases and media cases and different things that we've done behind the camera together and have a great relationship. And I think Kristen Davis is one of the most badass women that I know. So I can't think of anybody better to do this with in the morning and to wake up with, because you bring so much good energy into my life and you've been such a good friend. And I really look forward to everybody getting to know you. And you have a really juicy backstory, a lot like me. And I think our audience is really going to love it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the wonderful intro. For those that don't know me, I'm a publicist. I've represented many people, Roger Stone, General Flynn, over the years. Before that, I was vice president of a hedge fund. And in between those two fields, I was a criminal. So we like to have, you know, if you haven't been indicted, you're not invited to the party days. So
There you
that's,
go. I like that
yeah,
idea a
yeah.
lot.
And I feel like I'm in good company now that, you know, President Trump has gone through his case, which, you know, I was at the same courthouse. That was my case also. So you know, granted I was a criminal, so I deserve to be arrested, but, you know, there's a difference. So
Can we just talk about though, like, I understand that you were a criminal and I understand we can go back to this and you've repented for what you've done and you've become a much more spiritual person and all these wonderful, beautiful things that come out of this. But you are pretty much like single-handedly the woman that took down Elliot Spitzer. And that's a beautiful thing. And wasn't a lot of this based on his socks?
I think, you know, I wasn't in the room. I have heard socks were involved. Um, I did take him down, but, you know, I was collateral damage in that. So granted, he was, you know, a horrible human and, uh, you know, probably, you know, deserved what he got. It was a crippling experience for me. But it was, you know, I was thinking about it this morning, Karen. It was what I needed to, um, to become a better person, to be a better Christian, to find God again. I needed to go through some really hard times and make some horribly embarrassing mistakes. And I wouldn't have found my way back uh, to God had I not done those things. And I wasn't say lost, but I was just childhood trauma and shame spiraling and all of these things that, you know, I think a lot of people can relate to that make you feel like, you know, and you're not redeemable. And, you know, I needed to go through hard times to be where I'm at. And I would never have met Roger Stone also, who was, you know, a very important part of my life for 15 years.
Yeah,
So
15 years. Yeah, it's it's amazing how fast time flies. Like I was thinking today about how long I've known you and now, how long we did the show Ed and I together, which was, a moment, just a flash, really like 2.5 years of doing what we did just went by so, so quickly. And it's amazing. They say that life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it goes. And the older I get, the more I believe that's true.
that's a great statement. And you know, the chat, I'm reading everyone's chat. I don't know why I can't get this, so I have to look at my phone. I don't know why I can't get it on StreamYard. Ed Henry will have to tell us how that is, but you know, everyone loves you,
See, and
Karen.
I'm having a problem because Ed sent me the link and somebody's saying I'm glowing. I don't know what my lighting looks like, folks. Like, this is very, very, very rudimentary this morning. So it's going to get better as we do this, I promise. But I don't know if I'm glowing or my light's too bright. I can't even tell, but I can see people talking in the chat, but I can't contribute. I see that Ed Henry is in there. So yeah, Denise
Ed Henry's in there. I think he's enjoying the chat immensely.
Oh.
Yeah, he's gotten a few, you know, digs at us, friendly little blonde digs, but we're coming for you one day, Ed. We're coming.
Well, speaking of blondes, I actually want to get into what happened last night because I don't know how many of you watched Locals this morning, but Ed always jumps on Locals before the show and does his little thing on Locals and says hello and good morning to everybody. So this morning he went on there and he talked about this dinner we had last night. And we have a friend from New York who's pretty funny, and he came in and Ed has been growing his hair long. So Ed has this whole hair thing going on. And Kristen, I think this is really a trend. I think men in general, especially like younger men, like my son's 18, these kids have this wild hair. But older guys are now starting to grow their hair out. So Ed has this whole hair thing going on and he's feeling pretty good about it. You can tell. And he now does this thing where he kind of brushes his hair back. It's really, it's fun to watch. And
so I saw the picture you sent and I literally thought to myself, Ed needs a haircut. That was the first thing I thought. I said, what's going on there?
I had very mixed feelings about it because he looked different, but I sort of liked it in the way that it was something entirely different that was unexpected that I hadn't seen before. But our friend Harry made a comparison. And do you know who Hermie is? If I said the name Hermie to you, would you know who Hermie is?
No.
I wonder if the chat knows. Let's see. What does the chat say? Who knows who Hermie is?
Oh, Red Ginger said, Ed's proud. He's got hair to twirl. I love
He
this
does.
comment.
He does. And Patty says it makes him look younger, which I guess it could. I don't know that it made him look younger. I think I probably prefer him with shorter hair, but I'm going to get the chat to weigh in. So I don't think anybody knows who Hermie is. And I'm shocked because I have talked about my favorite movie many, many, many times on the show. And my favorite movie is Elf, which is a fantastical movie. And if you haven't watched it, you have to watch it. It's funny. I think it's one of the funniest movies out there. But the character, Buddy the Elf, was actually inspired by Hermie. And Hermie was one of the original elf characters in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So many years ago, like 1964, right? So we all watched that like as kids growing up. Remember you watch the Christmas specials? So Harry says that Ed looks like Hermie. And I know we can't put clips in the show yet, so I printed this out just for you, Kristen, this morning.
I think that's great. I think we now have Ed Henry's next Halloween costume.
So I have to say that I feel like the little hair flip thing in the front definitely has the Ed Henry style to it. And, you know, for those of you that are like looking at this and you're like, you know, he's super cute too. I think he's
cute.
super, super cute. But in the world of these elves that are on Rudolph's the Red-Nosed Reindeer, if you watch this movie, this is the best looking elf that exists.
So he's the stud elf.
Red-Nosed Reindeer land.
I see. Ed Henry, aka stud elf.
Stud elf.
That's right.
Those are the other ones.
Well, and the chat, the consensus on the chat is no man buns.
What is the consensus?
No man buns.
No man buns. Ooh, and you want to know what? It really is. It's pretty long. I have to say, he's not that far away from the man bun. He could do it if he really wanted to.
I can see that becoming a trend over at Ed Max.
Yeah. I see a lot of man buns in yoga. So, and sometimes I wish I didn't see them. I want to say that out here right now.
And I feel like that's one of the main reasons I don't go to yoga, because those are the types of people in yoga. So therefore, I'm going to go over to the section of the gym and lift weights.
There you go. But, you know, I do the yoga thing too, because for me, and, you know, you were talking about, you know, sort of your redemption and finding God and your spiritual journey to get to where you are after everything that you went through. And I love that you own the fact that you were a criminal and that you did things, but you were also an entrepreneur. So I'm going to choose to find the good in all of that, not only because you're my friend, but because I love your story. And I think the more the viewers get to know you and the more they find out what actually happened, the more they're going to like you too. I mean, people make choices, people do things. But, you know, the way you did them, again, I said badass at the beginning of the show. I'm going to go with that. And you're a spiritual badass, too. And it's a beautiful thing. And we're going to have Pastor Lawmeyer on the show later today. And he's somebody who is a mutual friend of Roger's that we connected with. And he's always a great guest and somebody who's going to weigh in a little bit on the whole Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, laying into Dr. Fauci and all of this new COVID news that we're getting.
Well, and Jackson Lawmeyer, you know, I've represented a number of pastors over the years, and there's just a small handful of pastors that have been genuine, you know, have helped me get to know a different God than the one I grew up with. The God that I learned as a kid was punishing and harsh, and you know, their views are so different, and it was, you know, it's beautiful to get to know him, God, in a way that I didn't as a child. So I think Jackson is really, you know, amazing pastor.
That's amazing. You know, I know that everybody is missing. I know that I'm missing reading Jesus Calling. That is actually one of my favorite parts of the show and always has been. And I'm going to pull it up my phone now. I know I sent it to you, Kristen. I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but it's really beautiful today. And I think it weighs into so much. I want to talk a little bit about, we're going to get into Pat Sajak leaving Wheel of Fortune and some things that I think are pretty epic right now. We're living in really epic times. And, I know that's a very light comparison, but, you never know where life is going to lead you. And sometimes, you don't know when things are going to end, but they lead you to something new. And I think when this show ended for Ed and I, and we left the prior network and we started this little show that we're on today, that's become a little show with a really big and really caring audience and a community more than anything, I can't help but feel so blessed to be here again and to be able to reconnect with everybody, because I really truly missed everything that we do here at this show.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So let's read Jesus calling, everyone. Come to me with a teachable spirit, eager to be changed. A close walk with me is a life of continual newness. Do not cling to old ways as you step into a new year. Instead, seek my face with an open mind, knowing that your journey with me involves being transformed by the renewing of your mind. As you focus your thoughts on me, be aware that I am fully attentive to you. I see you with a steady eye because my attention span is infinite. I know and understand you completely. My thoughts embrace you in everlasting love. I also know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Give to yourself fully on this adventure of increasing attentiveness. That attentiveness is to my presence. And this comes from Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, and plans to give you hope and a future. Amen.
Wow. Amen.
Amen. I'm sure the chat's saying amen. I got to pop back in there. But really beautiful passage today. And I think it just leads into so much for me, coming back here and having some time to really reconnect with my family and spend time with my new granddaughter has been something that's given me a really a new start to develop, better relationships with our audience and everybody in the chat and you and Ed, and to figure out where this all goes. And right now, maybe it's 2 days a week and maybe it's more. And, maybe we go back to vacation mode. We'll have to see.
Well, I appreciate you, Karen, and you doing this, because we need Ed Henry, for this election cycle. And I know Ed loves everyone, but he's got to be at Newsmax right now, helping fight the good fight in a big way.
He does. And, there's nobody better to do it. It's interesting. Think about where we are right now with Donald Trump running and him being the man for the job and the person that we need to get elected, because quite frankly, let's call it what it is. And I am the biggest Trump fan you can imagine, but he is the only man for the job. There's nobody else that has the cahoons to do this right now. There's nobody else who wants to take on the deep state and who can in such a big way. And I think when it comes to Ed Henry, I don't want to be anything but wonderful to all of the other Newsmax hosts, but he's a standout. He's the Donald Trump of Newsmax. Let's call it what it is.
I like that. The Donald Trump of Newsmax. I agree.
He's the big kahuna.
I agree with that. I think he's taking on a lot on his plate, and he's, brilliant at what he does. Not to say anything negative about Newsmax, but some of the other anchors just pale in comparison to Ed, so, and I know a lot of them. I've done their shows back when they were on Fox, and, Ed has always been one of the ones that I thought, put a lot of effort and energy into making his show and any, spots that he does really good. And I think that's rare also.
You really do know all of the ins and outs of the behind the scenes. Is one of the things that I love to pick your brain. And I know that everybody else is going to pick up on that too, that you've spent time with so many people off air and you sort of know a lot more about personalities and things that most people do when they work with these professionals. So it's always so great to get your insight. And again, not looking to say that anybody at Newsmax isn't qualified to really be the person who's covering Donald Trump during this election cycle, but you can't compete with Ed Henry.
No, they can't compete with Ed Henry. And Ed Henry have to say, I've been on back in the day, and actually even I think the last time I did any mainstream media was 2022 when I went on to defend Roger. And, I've done some very hard interviews where people were not fair. And I appreciate someone who gives everyone fairness and doesn't create a really awful environment for an interview. So I give it a lot of credit for, doing that also. I think if we had more ability to take in different, have other guests on, even if they're from the left, let's hear what they have to say. I mean, Fox used to have Crossfire, which I thought was great. They put on two different and let them battle it out. And we get exposed to different things, because I think when you're sitting in one sphere and you're only hearing one thing, then you tend to, then we're all divided, and there's not even a chance, I think, right now of any hope other than, Trump coming back into office. I don't know what will happen if he does not.
You've been in politics a lot longer than I have. And I have a pretty lengthy relationship with politics, but you've really been ingrained for a very, very long time. Didn't you run for governor, Kristen? Didn't that happen? Wasn't there some wokeness in New York that you were going to tackle?
Well, I ran for governor. I met Roger Stone on a radio show years ago, 2009. And he proposed the idea of running for governor as a protest candidate, which I thought he was out of his mind. But if you know Roger, he says the same thing about Trump. I was a jockey looking for a horse for the race. And so I was his horse in 2010. And he lobbied me for about almost a year before I agreed. And we ran for governor. And it was as a protest candidate. We knew we weren't going to win. That wasn't the point. It was just to protest the system. And, and we ran on a libertarian platform. I am a libertarian. So, we had a lot of fun. It was surreal. And it was my first venture into politics. I was never political. It helped me get to know the system and how it just it's not set up, to help the average person. And so, that has been a deep cause of concern for me for many years. It's just this, that as we progress, there used to be a time when, when as a publicist, I could put Roger Stone on CNN. I put him on, Meet the Press every week. And I've worked with Judge Napolitano for years and years. These people are my friends. And now there's no media. You can't go anywhere. We're limited to 3 or 4 stations, and we're not, increasing our base or reaching other people who maybe there are other people watching CNN or ABC that are confused and they want to hear something else, and we just don't have the capabilities to reach them anymore.
What's the answer? What do you think the answer is? Because I don't know. I'm listening to you and I'm like, is this a lost cause?
I don't know. People in the chat, do you have any ideas? Because I can tell you, we went from being able to at least have a seat at the table to being removed. And I think the answer is, potentially Trump coming back into office. And at least there'll be some coverage, maybe more coverage for him, though in his, 2017, 2018, they stopped covering a lot of his stuff. So I don't know. God, Jesus. And speaking of Jesus, we have Pastor Lawmeyer.
Do we? Amazing.
So should we run this clip?
I think so. I don't know. I'm trying to play with my lighting a little bit here, because now I actually can see myself on Rumble, and I realize that not only am I glowing, I look like I'm on the surface of the sun. I don't know if that's any better.
I think you look great.
Thanks. I mean, I don't know. It looked
You're glowing.
bright.
The chat says you're glowing. And this is Pastor Jackson Lawmeyer of Pastors for Trump. He is also the pastor of Sheridan Church in Oklahoma, in both Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And we are so thrilled to have him on.
Oh, I'm glad to be on. Can you guys hear me all right?
We got you. Karen, can you hear us?
Perfect.
I can. Hey, Jackson, good to see you.
It's good to
I
see
am
you. Good to see
the,
both of you.
Producer and technology person today, so cut me some slack.
You're doing pretty good, I
Fantastic.
have to say. I'm wondering, Pastor, did you see MTG lay into Dr. Fauci? Did you see
I
this
thought
whole
it was
debacle?
beautiful. I thought it was beautiful. Yeah, I watched, I only saw the highlights off of Twitter, so I'm on X scrolling through, seeing all the highlights. Jim Jordan, I saw some of his highlights. And so, it's weird to see Fauci again, though, isn't it? Because we've kind of like not seen him for a period. And every time I look at him, he just looks like a rat. You know what I'm saying? That's just kind of, I mean, do y'all get that vibe as well? He's just kind of sneaky,
I'm going to try to
radish
roll
type.
what MTG said for us, because we might as well test it here.
Do it, test
on
it.
the first day. Let's see.
No decorum.
You know what? We can do that hearing about the poor men that were injected with syphilis, because I support you in that. That's horrific. And this government that does things like that to Americans does.
I recognize Mr. Garcia from California. The chair will enforce these rules of decorum at all times and urges all members to be mindful. I recognize Mr. Garcia from California for 5 minutes. Oh, he left? I now recognize Ms. Green from Georgia for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fauci, you were quoted on CBS Face the Nation saying it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci?
I am a scientist who uses the scientific method to gain information.
Yes, you said you represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci? Yes or no? Yes or no?
No, that's not a yes or no answer.
Yes, it's a yes or no.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well, we'll take that as a you don't know what you represent.
Oh,
But this, as director of the NIH, you did sign off on these so-called scientific experiments. And as a dog lover, I want to tell you this is disgusting and evil, what you signed off on, and these experiments that happened to beagles paid for by the American taxpayer. And I want you to know Americans don't pay their taxes for animals to be tortured like this. So the type of science that you are representing, Mr. Fauci, is abhorrent, and it needs to stop. Mr. Fauci, you also represent the type of science where you confess that you made up the COVID rules, including
I didn't hear what you
6
said.
feet social distancing and masking of children.
I never said I made anything up.
You admitted that you made it up. You
I
made it
didn't
up
say
as you went.
I made it up. I made it up.
So are you saying this is fake news, Mr. Fauci?
I didn't say I made anything up.
What did you say?
I said that it is not based in science and it just appeared.
But this is science.
What does dogs have?
Oh, we lost Karen.
Nope, you didn't lose me. I'm here. I'm getting AirPods because the chat has told me that my volume is not good. So we're going to try some AirPods. So they're always giving me feedback.
Okay.
We'll see if that works any better.
Well, Jackson, you signed how many COVID religious exemptions now?
Signed a lot, actually, and it's kind of a funny story. So we signed over 65,000 over, a 2-year period of time when it was really intense. But do you know how we signed that many? Do you know the story, Kristen?
No, but I would love to hear it.
Oh, you got to hear this. So I started just signing the exemptions for people in my church and then kind of people they knew. So it was a local type of thing. But remember, I was running for the U.S. Senate at the time. So everything you do when you're running for office comes under the microscope. And so the Washington Post called me and said they were going to run a story about me being a pastor and a Senate candidate signing COVID-19 religious exemptions. Is going to be like, just a hit piece, basically. And they asked me if I wanted to comment. And I said I would comment if they would allow me to include my website in their news article. And they said, well, we got to go ask the editor. The editor approved it. So when they ran the hit piece on me, which was terrible, you can go read it. It was terrible. I didn't like myself for like 3 months after reading the thing. And so they included my website, though, in the hit piece. And so every time somebody went to Google and typed in COVID-19 religious exemption form, my website popped up first. And it was because of the Washington Post that we were able to sign over 65,000 of them. That helped save a lot of jobs, and I believe helped save a lot of lives as well.
Yeah, you signed one for me, not for me, but for, I referred a couple people to you and who were able to keep their jobs in California in the school district because you did that. So
yeah, people were kind of shocked at how effective religious exemptions were, but most companies did not want to challenge a person's religious belief.
Right. Well, so what do you think about MTG and the Fauci testimony from yesterday? What are your thoughts?
I thought she did a great job. She was probably the only one who really went after him like I wish everyone else would have. And so, hopefully, though, this turns into more than just, a 3-minute highlight reel. I mean, Anthony Fauci is someone who has done crimes against humanity, as she said later on. But with that, there's got to be accountability. There's got to be justice, because you're talking about millions and millions of people that suffered because of this guy. I mean, the decisions this guy made and his involvement in the creation of the virus in the first place. So, hopefully it turns into more than just these segments. But I've come to realize something. We're like in this epic game of chess, and all Republicans do is play checkers. And so we're always behind. We're always losing. We're never getting anything actually done. We release very good press statements. You see all the different senators or people in Congress, they'll release when Trump gets convicted, right? They all got very strongly worded tweets, but they actually don't do anything. And I think that's why we're in such a mess we're in. Democrats are very good at getting things done. President Trump's been charged, convicted, and soon to be sentenced. They're good at getting things done. While you've got Anthony Fauci, Hillary Clinton, you go on and on and on. I mean, nothing at all. And so I think that's kind of the state that we're in right now.
Karen, why we lost your audio? We can't hear you. What do you think, Jackson, about the 6-foot rule just appearing, miraculously appearing? Do you know, I went to the grocery store back in 2022 and there was a big sign, and this is Florida, Fort Lauderdale. It's like, you can't come in without a mask and stay 6 feet apart. So I guess these things just somehow miraculously appeared, like maybe a commandment or something just dropping down from.
Do you remember all the signage that went on the floors where they'd have the little dots where you were supposed to stand?
Arrows, walk this way.
Yes. Can you imagine how much these companies spent on signage, though? I mean, because I'm thinking like Walmart, Home Depot, just the volume of the signage that went in. And I think everyone knew that was kind of like an arbitrary number. There was nothing scientific behind it, especially with the mask. Because if you remember, Anthony Fauci in the beginning was not a pro-masker. He was actually not a proponent of masks. And then all of a sudden there was a major shift. And then if you didn't wear a mask, you were a terrible human, killing everybody you came in contact with. And I remember being at the airport. I mean, Kristen, think about all the travel that so many of us did during that time period, and the masked Nazis at the airports and on the airplanes, and how you could get kicked off an airplane if you didn't have your mask on. And the exception was, though, if you were eating. And so I developed a great system on airplanes because you could pull your mask down to your chin. You just eat a Skittle one at a time. You just do one Skittle and you can keep your mask down.
Yeah, that's I have to say though, when they took away the masks, then I mean that, like, I was actually a little, sadly, only for the airplanes, a little disappointed, because then I had to make conversation with people next to me. So
that's
I
what these are for.
Enjoyed the mask because it allowed me to, you know, to just pull it. I pulled it all the way up almost to my eyeballs, and it was great. And then, you know, and
You know,
then I
I'm
didn't
sure
have to talk
criminals too,
on
though,
long
you know,
flights.
people who like to rob convenience stores and things like that, I'm sure they were really bummed when the masks things went away because now they didn't stand out. You know, it was just crazy. And Kristen, you won't believe this. I was on an airplane flying back from the Bahamas this weekend, and there was like three people on my flight, three people that were wearing masks. I was just like, what year are we in? It's
Oh, wow.
2024, and they're still, can you imagine wearing a mask for the last 4 years of your life? That's wild.
And I think about that in terms of trauma, right? Like they told us millions of people were going to die. And,
Yeah.
we all sat there. And I remember sitting on my couch in Florida when I had just dropped my son off to my mom's in California. They were going to go to the coast and it was like spring break. And I remember sitting there and being so afraid and being like, I might lose family members. And, and the people I think that bought into that are probably still wearing the masks, they haven't ever come out of that.
Yeah.
They still, and I don't know if that's just like long-term, prolonged trauma or like CPTSD, or you know, if it's just this combination exposure only to media that's still a lot of the times telling you, that the same narrative. I mean, some of the mainstream media I don't particularly watch, but I see them. There's a few anchors that have pivoted, but I don't know what happened to Karen. We lost Karen.
Well, it's just us for now.
I wonder, I'm scared. I'm actually scared for those people that are still wearing masks. And I see them sometimes driving around in their car still with masks on. And part of me is like, you're nuts. But then I also, have a lot of compassion for them because I'm like, wow, you're still living your life afraid. And that's a really horrible place,
Well, they
to be.
used COVID as the greatest means of mass
Control.
fear propaganda. How do you control the masses? You do it through fear. And I mean, they were successful. I mean, you got to think about that. You remember that little ticker that was on CNN, that little ticker
Oh,
that was on Fox News? These are the people who have caught it. These are the people who are dying from it. And that number was just a continual incline. And it just puts fear in you because you're seeing, oh my gosh, all these people have it, all these people are dying. And then you're being told, if you remember the models that said 2.2 million Americans were going to die. I mean, that's a lot of
right.
Americans in a short amount of time. And so, that was a season of fear, which now I think they're doing the same thing in a different way. It is now lawfare that if you dissent or you disagree with us, we're going to sue you into oblivion. We are going to ruin you financially. We're going to find something that you may have done. I mean, you can just see it from the spectrum of, you got Alex Jones on one end, you've got President Trump on the other end. And so it's the same thing, but now it's more like lawfare.
Well, and I understand lawfare because I feel like I was the victim of lawfare back in 2008 when I caught my case for being involved with Spitzer. Now let's put, if I give you the context, I was charged with a Class E felony, which is the same as Trump. Yet my bail was $2 million in cash or $4 million in property, which was literally their intent. I feel like was to keep me in prison so that I was scared um, and would be quiet about the things that I knew. And I sat there on a really high bail that I couldn't make because they seized all of my money. And I was in Rikers Island in solitary confinement for months. And I certainly was very scared. And I came out and I didn't fight my case. I had signed over all my money. I was like, here, if this is what you want, which is what they wanted. And you know, and kept my mouth shut. And so I feel like even back then, my DA was Morgenthau, who Spitzer clerked for. And so, you know, Spitzer was in the realm of New York City government. And technically, my case was a joint New York City FBI case. And the feds could have taken me, and it would have actually been a much longer sentence for me, but they didn't. And I think, you know, it was all orchestrated behind the scenes. And, you know, people just don't understand, you know, a good person likes to think that the legal system is set up and people have chances, and they just don't. You know, you don't have a chance. And it's really sad to see what's happening to Trump. All of these cases, the intent to bankrupt, you know.
Well, they've
And
done that to Rudy Giuliani. They've done, I mean, you could just go through the list of people that have been associated with Donald Trump, and they've really just set out to make an example of them because that'll put fear in you. If they can do that to Rudy, well, what could they do to me? If they could do that to Trump, what could they do to me? If they could do that to Roger Stone, General, I mean, you can just go through the list. It's everybody. Peter Navarro's. Yeah, they can do that to I mean, you've got people who've been in prison 3.5 years over a trespass. I mean, think about that for a second. I mean, it's trespassing. So it just goes to show you lawfare is kind of the means right now of forcing people into submission. Because if you do not submit, this is what we will do to you. And it's dangerous because isn't our entire system built upon scales that are supposed to be equally balanced? And, you know, you hear the phrase, no one is above the law, right? No one's above the law, but no one is supposed to be below the law either. And that's the problem we ran into is you do have people above the law, Anthony Fauci, but you've got people that are being treated below the law, Donald Trump, Giuliani, and so forth, January 6th. Political prisoners, and it's a dangerous time. That's why this election, I think, is so important.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know what I thought was interesting about Fauci? So back in 2020, Michael Caputo, who actually ran my 2010 governor's race with Roger, and he was the press secretary for the DHS, and Trump appointed him to manage Fauci as all of these new rules were coming out. And Caputo, after a couple of months, he went on a Facebook Live and just like broke down. They're lying to you, masks don't work, all of these things. And he was canceled and had to resign because of it, even though it's now 4 years later and everything he said was the truth. But at that moment in time, you know, you couldn't say the truth. And even then, and I think you've had some experiences with that throughout your, you know, Senate race and signing the COVIDs where the truth just, you know, you can't say it. I mean, what do you think about that?
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, you got so your major platforms, right? And thank goodness for Rumble. Thank goodness for you know, True Social, some of these alternative platforms. But Rumble and True Social, these are echo chambers. We all already believe these things. You know what I mean? We're all already aware. But your major platforms that should be for, say, dialogue and information, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Now X is, but you know, that's thanks to Elon Musk. But those major platforms, the truth was totally aborted, canceled. And if you even mentioned it, their algorithms were so good that you would be taken off immediately. I mean, I remember talking about COVID on YouTube, and bam, in the middle of the live stream, I was taken down and then sentenced to a 6-month, whatever you call it, suspension. And that was intentional. And I think it was Jim Jordan that brought out some of the text messages of Mark Zuckerberg in regards to downplaying that Facebook was ordered by the government to downplay the conspiracy theory that the virus started in a Wuhan lab. So that if you said COVID-19 originated in a lab in Wuhan, Facebook was ordered by our government to suppress that. Think about that for a second. Not Facebook making that decision. Facebook's a private company. They can do what they want. However, a private company was given an order by our government to silence and to eradicate the First Amendment of so many people. And that goes to show you we're in a lot of trouble. That wasn't just a Facebook decision. That wasn't a Mark Zuckerberg decision. He was given orders from above, and then obviously he carried the water for the government. But that's a dangerous, dangerous place to be in.
Karen, welcome back. I think we can hear you.
I don't think she can hear us.
Jackson, it's our first show, and everyone hosting for Ed, so we're having a few technical problems. But we're happy. There's a lot of people in the chat, and we're grateful that you're hanging out with us for this hour. Hoping
thanks for having me.
Coffee. I lost Karen again.
She'll be back.
Yeah. Charlene Bollinger, who has been my longtime client from The Truth About Cancer, was one of those people who was censored. And some of those people who have been censored still don't have their accounts back.
Yeah.
She never got
the 12 most.
Yeah, the disinformation dozen. And actually, she's in a lawsuit with Bobby Kennedy, an antitrust, claiming that they that a lot of the media, the Trusted News Initiative, band together to silence people with opposing voices, just trying to get any sort of attention to what happened. But the DHS, sent emails to Facebook. I mean, I personally can't believe that's the world we live in anymore.
No, that's terrible. And think about the damage done to their reputation, the damage done to say their businesses or their means of making an income, because a lot of people, their means of making an income is through speaking the truth and giving people information and things like that. And so our government has targeted certain people who would be a threat to the narrative or to the establishment, and they have gone after them in so many different ways. And I really think the statement is true. You hear President Trump say it all the time. It's not me that they're going after. It's really you. And these are some people, Charlene Bollinger, Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, they're kind of like the first line of defense. And once they are taken out, well, then here comes the government after people just like me, just a normal guy who tweeted something on X, and then boom, now I'm under lawfare because of whatever my tweet was. And so that is why this fight's so important. I think we got Karen back.
Do we? Can anybody hear
me? You.
Oh, thank you. And and I got the laptop set up. We're going to get these technical issues worked out. And I know it's me, Kristen. I told you from the beginning, I said, you're going to do this with me. I need you to handle the tech, not my jam.
It's okay. I understand. You're right, Jackson. I think, they want to keep everybody enslaved, and all of these other people who are fighting for us, they're the first ones. But what happens when they're gone? What happens when they take these people out? Then what are we left with? That's what I'm concerned with. I mean, Jesus, this is all we've got at that point in time. Like, who else is there?
Absolutely.
If we take out the fighters at the front of the line, then everybody, what do we do?
I don't know. It's been such a long, crazy trip, and you're sitting here talking about, some of your experiences, Kristen, and being in jail, and all I can go back to, because it brings up my own experience when the judge that raided Mar-a-Lago put me in a maximum security prison for 30 days. But, that's a whole can of worms that we can open. But that was actually when COVID hit. I was in a maximum security detention center when COVID hit, and I came out to the world being shut down, not knowing what was next, not knowing what was happening, and being super confused about where we were headed as a country. And here we are now, and watching everything unfold and watching these polls and watching them prop up a demented man as the puppet that is going to be their presidential candidate just makes me pause, because I think, when is the next pandemic? What are we doing? And, thank God for the people that are willing to be out there and to fight and to stand up and to run for political office. And thank God for companies like the wellness company that we talk about on this show and their emergency kit that gets people ivermectin, that gets them the Z-Pack. I think right now they're offering our viewers, if I'm right, I hope I'm right, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's $30 off on that emergency kit. With the times we're living in, I just keep thinking, are they going to drop another pandemic before we get to the ballot box? What do you think about that, guys?
Well, I'm hearing a little bit, not a whole bunch, but a little bit about this bird flu. I guess there's a couple of Americans, and it's never happened before that people have caught bird flu. And so now you got a couple of Americans that have. And so we'll see if there's anything to that. But I kind of agree with you, Karen. It's like this election has been really quiet. It's been really, because if you remember 2020, it was from the get-go. It was COVID, it was BLM, it was just the economy's crashing. It was wild. And now we are in
They were
June.
putting
It's hard to believe.
conservatives in prison, Jackson. Do you remember that?
So like we're in June, and I mean we've had some dumb people on college campuses protest, but there hasn't been, other than say the Trump conviction, there really hasn't been anything that's impacted everybody, right? That's impacted everybody. So it's been really quiet, which I'm from Oklahoma, and we get storms galore, tornadoes, and it's always like very, very silent and still before all hell breaks loose and a tornado comes ripping through. So it's like, it kind of feels like that to me right now from an election cycle perspective. It's been really quiet. There's nothing major that has happened. And so it's like, what are we in store for in July, August, September, and October? And I don't know, but definitely wouldn't shock me if there was some type of other pandemic or economic collapse. I don't know if you saw the deficit that was released yesterday. It's like 517 billion of losses that was unaccounted for, and there's 63 banks that may be insolvent, and so that could be a big problem.
Yeah, I think we're up to something with this bird flu. Let me know, Chad, if you want me to go down a rabbit hole in this bird flu situation. I'm more than happy to do it, because it scares me when I see what's happening. I've been taking the other thing TWC has, I got the spike support. I've been taking this for over a year now. I really honestly think it's prevented me from getting COVID. I've never actually had it, but now this bird flu thing is a whole other ball of wax that, I don't know, makes my skin crawl. That's for sure, Kristen.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say about that. I don't know about everybody in the chat. I'm not going through another lockdown. That's it. I am not going to be locked down. I'm already a bit of a rule breaker, and it's just not going to happen. I'm prepared to break rules.
She got out once. She's not going back, folks.
That's right. Listen, I spent a year and a half in prison. It's not happening.
Not going back again.
I'm adverse to any forms of lockdown or people telling me what to do. So,
Well, I almost got arrested in 2020 because I kept the church open, and the mayor of Tulsa threatened to arrest me. He didn't follow through with it, so I can't have the badge of honor saying I've been a political prisoner. I have not, but I got close.
Well,
you got really close.
Your campaign was one of the funnest for me, Jackson.
Did you enjoy it? I had a blast.
We had, I mean, out of all the campaigns, yours is probably, it's in my top 3 of favorites.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, I can't believe it, but we're coming to the end of the show. It's about 10:01. So Pastor Lawmeyer, it's been great having you. I'm so glad you're able to join us. It's great to be back, Patriots. Wake Up Patriots. We're going to be here. Kristen, we're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to do this all again tomorrow, hopefully with less technical issues.
Yes. Thank you, Jackson, for coming on. It's my
Thanks
first
for
time
having me.
actually doing something with
You did a great job. I'll tell Ed you did a great job.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Patriots.